Dear friends, welcome to our channel. We are delighted to share with you different stories about love and betrayal from around the world. So let's begin our story journey today. Your wife secretly put something in your drink. Alden stood frozen at the entrance to the restaurant restroom, the stranger's words hitting like a hammer to his chest. He instinctively turned around, but the woman had already disappeared into the noisy crowd of the restaurant. Inside the five-star restaurant, cheerful jazz music intertwined with conversation. The candlelit dinner for their 10th wedding anniversary should have been perfect, with their 6-year-old son Finley sitting quietly to the side, scribbling on the children's menu provided by the restaurant. Alden's wife Lydia waited at their table, her carefully styled golden hair shimmering softly in the candlelight. Alden observed the scene from a distance, countless fragments flashing through his mind. Lydia's growing distance over the past 6 months, late-night secret phone calls, unexplained expenses on bills, and that high-value life insurance policy she had insisted on purchasing. His intuition told him that the stranger's warning wasn't merely a prank. "Are you all right?" Lydia asked when she saw him return, showing a concerned smile on her face. "You look a bit pale." "It's nothing. Just met a strange person," Alden replied as he sat down, forcing himself to remain calm. "What person?" Lydia's voice sounded slightly tense. "Nothing important." Alden smiled, turning to Finley. "Hey, little buddy, what have you drawn?" Finley proudly held up his drawing. "It's our whole family." "Dad, look, I drew you really tall." Alden took the drawing, feeling a pang of heartache. In the picture, 3 stick figures held hands under the sun, standing beside their house. This innocent child had no idea that their family was on the verge of collapse. "That's great. We'll put it on the refrigerator when we get home," Alden said quietly, while observing Lydia from the corner of his eye. She was acting overly enthusiastic, repeatedly pouring him wine, encouraging him to drink more in celebration. These small details, which previously might have been expressions of love, now seemed suspiciously strange. The waiter brought their main courses. Finley eagerly picked up his knife and fork, while Lydia suggested taking him to wash his hands. Alden seized the opportunity to quickly and discreetly swap his glass with Lydia's. His fingers trembled slightly, but the movement was quick and precise, not drawing any attention. "You must try this steak. It's really excellent," Lydia suggested when she returned with Finley, while taking what was now Alden's glass and sipping some wine. Alden held his breath, hardly daring to look at her. "Yes, it looks good," he replied, looking down to cut his steak, having no appetite but forcing himself to eat mechanically. A dull anger began building inside him, but he knew it wasn't time to explode. Approximately 10 minutes later, Lydia's behavior began to become abnormal. Her face gradually paled, her speech became slurred, and her gaze began to lose focus. "Lydia, are you all right?" Alden asked, his voice mixing genuine concern with suppressed anger. "I feel a bit strange," Lydia said with difficulty, holding her forehead. "The room is spinning." When she attempted to stand, she lost her balance, and Alden quickly extended his arm to support her. "Waiter, call an ambulance," he shouted, making sure Finley was safely behind him. "My wife has suddenly taken ill." The restaurant manager quickly arrived, while Alden discreetly took a photo with his phone of the glass in front of Lydia and her evident distress. It was an instinctive reaction, knowing he might need this evidence in the future. "What happened?" the manager asked nervously. Alden, as if suddenly remembering something, changed his expression from concern to confusion. "Wait, a moment ago, a woman," she said. "I'm not sure, but she mentioned that my wife might have put something in my drink." The manager's expression immediately became serious. "We need to preserve these glasses for testing. I'll arrange for security footage to be reviewed." The ambulance arrived quickly, and the paramedics confirmed that Lydia needed to be taken to the hospital immediately. Alden left Finley with a waitress from the restaurant, briefly explaining that Mommy wasn't feeling well and he needed to accompany her to the hospital. "I'll be back soon to get you, little guy. Don't be afraid, okay?" Alden kissed his son's forehead, holding back tears. Finley nodded, and although his eyes showed confusion and fear, he trusted his father's promise. In the ambulance, Alden held Lydia's semi-conscious hand, while inside he felt ice cold. 10 years of marriage, they had loved each other deeply, and now they had come to this. Why would Lydia do something like this? What had transformed a loving wife into a stranger willing to harm her husband? Lydia had been a successful marketing specialist who gradually gave up her career development for the family. Initially, she was content with the role of housewife, but a few years ago began showing dissatisfaction and feelings of loss. Alden knew she yearned to return to work, but never imagined her discontent was deep enough to plan such an extreme act. Upon arriving at the hospital, doctors quickly examined and treated Lydia. Alden insisted on comprehensive toxicology tests. I'm concerned she may have ingested some harmful substance, or there might have been an issue with the restaurant food, he cautiously expressed, without directly accusing Lydia. When the doctor left, Alden immediately called his lawyer, Dorian. What did you say? Dorian asked incredulously after hearing the whole story. Lydia tried to poison you? This is absurd. I know it sounds unbelievable, Alden responded quietly, ensuring no medical staff were nearby. But I saw that woman warn me, and Lydia exhibited symptoms immediately after drinking from that glass. Dorian took a deep breath. Listen, don't alert anyone yet. The hospital will conduct toxicology tests, and if they find any abnormal substances, this will be a serious criminal offense. I suggest you contact the police immediately and request a temporary custody order to protect Finley. Alden nodded, though it couldn't be seen over the phone. I'll have my parents look after Finley for a few days. But I need to know, why would Lydia do this? It's not like her. People always have sides you don't see, Dorian responded calmly. But now isn't the time to analyze motives, but to ensure your safety and that of your son. After hanging up, Alden contacted his parents, briefly explaining the situation and asking them to pick up Finley immediately. Then he expressed his concern to the hospital security staff, requesting someone watch Lydia's room before she woke up. The toxicology results came quickly. Large amounts of benzodiazepines were found in Lydia's blood, substances that in excessive use can cause severe central nervous system depression. The doctor explained to Alden and the police who had arrived that if the dose had been higher, the consequences could have been fatal. When the officer began asking for details, Alden described the entire incident, including the warning from the unknown woman and Lydia's recent unusual behavior patterns. We need to identify that lady, said the officer. We've also sent personnel to the restaurant to obtain security footage and samples from the glasses. At that moment, a nurse hurried over. Sir, your wife has awakened and is asking about you and your child. Alden followed the officer to the room. Lydia appeared weak and confused, but when she saw Alden with the police, a flash of fear crossed her eyes. What happened? Where is Finley? She asked weakly. Finley is with my parents. He's safe, Alden answered, his voice terrifyingly calm. Lydia, the hospital found large amounts of sedatives in your blood. Can you explain how they got there? Lydia's eyes widened, her lips trembling. I don't know what you're talking about. It must have been something in the restaurant food. Someone saw you put something in my drink. Alden looked directly into her eyes. And coincidentally, you were the one who drank from that cup. Lydia's face grew even paler. She looked at the officer, then at Alden, as if searching for an escape route. Finally, she broke down, with uncontrollable tears. It was a misunderstanding. It wasn't supposed to be like this, she said between sobs. The officer stepped forward. Mrs. Lydia, I need to ask you some questions about this matter. You have the right to remain silent and to have a lawyer present. Alden couldn't stay in the room any longer. He left the hospital and stood in the parking lot in the cold wind for a long time, trying to organize his thoughts. His marriage, his trust, everything he had built, was completely destroyed in one night. But what hurt him most was that this betrayal wasn't just directed at him, but indirectly harmed their son as well. Returning to the hospital, he discovered the police had obtained more information. The restaurant's security footage had clearly recorded Lydia pouring a substance into the drink when he was absent. Additionally, the mysterious lady had also contacted the police. Her name is Wren Caldwell. The officer informed Alden. She's the ex-girlfriend of Thaddeus Harlow, who happens to be your wife's personal trainer. According to Wren, she accidentally overheard Thaddeus and your wife planning all this. Thaddeus Harlow. The name was somewhat familiar to Alden. Lydia had started exercising about 6 months ago and frequently mentioned how her trainer helped her regain her confidence. At the time, Alden was happy she had found a new interest, never imagining it would become the source of her betrayal. The investigation quickly extended to Thaddeus Harlow. Police found information about Alden in his apartment, including his work schedule, insurance policy details, and research notes on how to use certain medications. More disturbing still, they found email exchanges between Thaddeus and Lydia discussing follow-up plans. Thaddeus attempted to flee when arrested, further confirming his guilt. During interrogation, he initially denied all allegations, but faced with overwhelming evidence, soon sought a plea deal, trying to shift most of the responsibility to Lydia. It was completely her idea, he claimed. She couldn't stand her husband and wanted the insurance money. I just gave her some advice. However, evidence from his phone and computer told another story. Thaddeus was the mastermind behind the entire plan, having identified Lydia as an easy target to manipulate. A frustrated former professional, dissatisfied with her ordinary family life, eager for excitement and change. He exploited these weaknesses to gradually guide her toward the crime. Lydia faced serious charges of attempted murder and insurance fraud. Her defense lawyer tried to present her as a victim of Thaddeus, a manipulated and seduced wife. But phone records showed that Lydia not only actively participated in the plan, but also suggested several improvements, including selecting the appropriate occasion, the 10th anniversary dinner, and ensuring Finley wouldn't accidentally ingest the drug. Alden couldn't directly face Lydia. He filed for divorce through his lawyer while requesting full custody of Finley from the court. Given the nature of the case, the court quickly approved a temporary custody order, prohibiting Lydia from any form of contact with Alden and Finley. Finley still didn't understand everything that had happened. At 6 years old, he only knew that Mommy was sick and needed to go to a special place for treatment for a while. Alden, along with his parents and a child psychologist, carefully explained this difficult transition period to Finley. "When will Mommy come home?" Finley asked one night after Alden finished reading him a bedtime story. Alden's heart broke. He knew he couldn't lie to his son, but the complete truth was too heavy for a 6-year-old child. "Mommy did some bad things and needs to be away from us for a while," he explained as gently as possible. "But she'll always be your mommy, and I will never leave you." Finley seemed to accept this explanation, but still woke up from nightmares during the night. Alden often found himself sitting by his son's bed, patting him back to sleep, his heart filled with anger toward Lydia and heartache for Finley's innocent suffering. Finally, Wren Caldwell met with Alden and explained in detail how she learned of the plan. As Thaddeus's ex-girlfriend, she too had been deceived and used by him. When she accidentally discovered Thaddeus and Lydia's plan, her moral sense compelled her to act. "I couldn't stand by and watch an innocent person get hurt, especially considering your son," she told Alden. "I know Thaddeus's methods. He can make people believe that what they want is exactly what he offers." Alden appreciated Wren's courage, but still struggled to understand Lydia's choice. "She could have asked for a divorce directly," he said, confused. "I never prevented her from pursuing the life she wanted." Wren gently shook her head. "Thaddeus's game isn't just about freedom. He made Lydia believe she deserved more. Your insurance money, your assets, and a brand new start without any struggles or compromises." As the case progressed, Alden had to rebuild his life and Finley's. He took temporary leave to care for his son while handling the constant legal matters that emerged. He sold their house, that place full of memories but now only pain, and moved to a small apartment nearby. The trial of Lydia and Thaddeus became the focus of local media attention. Headlines about the 10th anniversary poison glass case occupied the front pages of all news outlets. During the trial, the evidence was overwhelming, including restaurant security footage, toxicology reports, planning materials found in Thaddeus's apartment, and Wren's testimony. Alden only attended the trial when absolutely necessary. Each time he saw Lydia sitting in the defendant's box, he felt a void in his heart. Once, he thought he knew his wife, every expression, every smile. Now, she was like a complete stranger. Most shocking to Alden was Lydia's testimony. Faced with irrefutable evidence, she admitted her involvement, but her explanation was heartbreaking. "After 10 years of marriage, I felt my life was stagnating," she said in court. "Alden was always so successful, while I lost my identity. Thaddeus made me believe our plan wouldn't really hurt anyone, just temporarily incapacitate Alden so we could get the insurance money. But records of emails and text messages showed that the final purpose of the plan went much further. Thaddeus and Lydia had discussed doses that could cause permanent damage and how to obtain custody of Finley after the unfortunate incident, while acquiring all of Alden's assets. The grand jury barely took any time to reach their verdict. Lydia was found guilty of attempted murder and insurance fraud, sentenced to 15 years in prison, with the possibility of parole after 10 years. Thaddeus, being the mastermind and having a prior record, was sentenced to 20 years. After the sentence was announced, Lydia tried to contact Alden through her lawyer, but he clearly rejected any form of communication. "Tell her it's all over," Alden told Lydia's lawyer. "I don't need explanations or apologies. I just want her to stay away from me and my son." For Alden, legal justice couldn't repair the emotional trauma. His trust had been completely destroyed, his faith in love shaken. With support from friends and family, he began receiving psychological counseling, learning how to handle this profound level of betrayal. The divorce process was completed quickly. Given Lydia's criminal behavior, the court awarded Alden the vast majority of the marital assets, as well as full custody of Finley. Lydia was prohibited from any form of unsupervised visitation until Finley turned 18 or until further court order. 6 months later, Alden decided to make a completely fresh start. He accepted a job offer from a company in California, preparing to move with Finley to the West Coast. Before leaving, he visited the prison, not to see Lydia, but to close this chapter. At the visitor check-in desk, staff asked whom he was visiting. "No one," Alden replied. "I just need to look at this building to remind myself of something." He stood in the parking lot, gazing at the gray walls and barbed wire, the pain and anger still alive in his heart. But he knew that for Finley, and for himself, he had to look forward. He wouldn't forgive Lydia's betrayal, nor would he forget it. But he refused to let that betrayal define the rest of his life. The California sun was brighter than Alden had expected. He and Finley settled into a small Spanish-style villa in Santa Monica, just minutes' walk from the beach. New job, new school, new neighbors. Everything reminded them that life could begin anew. "Dad, can I go play at the beach?" Finley asked on the morning of their third day after moving. At 7 years old, he had already adapted quickly to this sun-filled environment. "Of course, let me gather a few things and we'll go," Alden replied with a smile. Seeing his son gradually regaining his vitality gave him some comfort. The past 6 months had been especially difficult for Finley, from losing his mother to moving away from his familiar home and facing curious glances and questions from classmates. At the beach, Finley ran joyfully through the waves while Alden watched from the sand. His phone vibrated in his pocket, a call from Dorian. "Hey, any news?" Alden asked. "I received notification from the prison." Dorian's voice was serious. "Lydia has applied for visitation rights, wanting to contact Finley via video. I suggest we continue to reject any form of contact." Alden watched his son playing in the distance, feeling an internal conflict. On one hand, he knew Finley still missed his mother. On the other, he couldn't trust that Lydia wouldn't hurt him psychologically again. "Tell the court we reject the request," he finally decided. Finley isn't ready to face all this. Maybe someday, but not now. After hanging up, Alden continued watching Finley. His son was concentrated on building a sandcastle, his expression carefree. Alden silently vowed that, whatever the cost, he would protect this child from any additional harm. Alden's new job as creative director at an architectural design firm was challenging but fulfilling. He arranged a flexible work schedule to personally drop off and pick up Finley from school, attend his soccer games and school activities. Despite everything, he still felt lonely, especially in the quiet hours of the night. One afternoon, a colleague from work, Dahlia, invited Alden and Finley to a weekend barbecue. Alden's initial instinct was to decline. He had maintained caution towards social activities since the incident. But seeing the longing in Finley's eyes to make friends, he finally accepted. The barbecue turned out surprisingly pleasant. Finley quickly made friends with other children, while Alden found he could maintain normal conversations with other people without mentioning his past. "Your son is adorable," Dahlia commented later that afternoon. "It must be difficult raising him alone." Alden nodded. "It's challenging, but also very rewarding. If you need any help, like occasional pickups or watching Finley, don't hesitate to ask," she kindly offered. "My daughter Emma is about his age, and they seemed to get along well. Alden smiled gratefully, but inside there remained an insurmountable barrier. He could accept help, even form new friendships, but deeper trust and intimacy? That seemed an unreachable possibility. During the first few months in the new environment, Alden worked hard to establish a support system. He joined a local support group for single parents, where he could share experiences with people facing similar challenges. Finley began receiving child psychological counseling, which helped him express and process his complex feelings toward his mother. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away in prison, Lydia's life was another world. Initially, she tried to maintain a low profile, but her case was too notorious. Fellow inmates felt both curiosity and hostility toward the wife who had attempted to poison her husband, especially those who had children. But the real punishment didn't come from external discrimination, but from her own internal torment. Prison gave Lydia plenty of time to reflect on how she went from being a loving wife to a person willing to harm her husband. She remembered her first meeting with Thaddeus, how he gradually planted ideas, how he guided her step by step toward the abyss. "You deserve a better life," Thaddeus had told her. "You gave up everything to support Alden, and how has he thanked you?" With a suburban cage and daily household chores. At first, Lydia just enjoyed the attention and recognition. Then, as their relationship deepened, Thaddeus began describing a perfect solution. If Alden unfortunately suffered an accident, the insurance money would give her freedom and a new life. "Just a little medication," he promised. "Make him temporarily unable to move, so we can get his signature and access. Afterward, we can start a new life together, you, me, and Finley." Lydia had believed in this absurd plan. Not only believed it, but actively participated, executing this terrible action on that fatal night. The days in prison were monotonous and lonely. Lydia tried to contact Finley several times, but each attempt was rejected by Alden's lawyers citing the court order. She tried writing letters explaining her actions, but never received a response. Unlike Lydia, Thaddeus soon found his way in prison. As a charismatic manipulator, he quickly established a network of relationships, ensuring his relatives' safety and comfort. He almost never mentioned Lydia or Alden, as if that plan and those people had never existed. Wren Caldwell moved to Portland after the case, beginning a new life. Occasionally, she received brief updates from Alden, informing her about Finley's situation, which gave her a warm satisfaction. Her courage had changed the fate of many people, and although she never sought recognition, this awareness gave her peace. In his second year in California, Alden met a single mother named Alara at Finley's school. Her 10-year-old daughter became friends with Finley, and the children played together frequently. Alara had also experienced betrayal. Her ex-husband had cheated on her with her best friend, leaving her alone to raise her daughter. "Sometimes I wonder if I'll ever be able to trust anyone again," Alara confessed during an occasion when the children were playing while the adults had coffee. Alden nodded understandingly. The scars of betrayal run deep, especially when they come from those you trusted most. "But I don't want my daughter to see a mother who's eternally fearful and defensive," Alara continued. "She needs to know that, although life can bring pain, it's still worth keeping an open mind." These words resonated in Alden's heart. He didn't want Finley to lose trust in humanity because of his mother's betrayal. But at the same time, his own scars were still fresh, and whenever he remembered Lydia's deception, anger and pain would resurface. At work, Alden gradually regained his creativity and passion. His designs began receiving recognition in the industry, and the company gave him more autonomy and a higher position. Financial stability allowed him to provide Finley with quality education and enriching extracurricular activities. However, no matter how much he tried to hide it, the shadows of the past were always present. Whenever someone asked about Finley's mother, Alden gave vague answers. Usually, "We separated," or "She's not in the child's life." These half-truths were exhausting, but he didn't want strangers to know the painful truth. 3 years later, one Saturday morning, Alden saw a familiar face on the television news while pouring coffee: Thaddeus Harlow. The report said he had been seriously injured in a prison fight and was in critical condition. Alden turned off the television, not wanting 9-year-old Finley to see the news. But this information awakened a series of complex emotions in him. He felt no sadness for Thaddeus's situation, but neither did he feel malicious satisfaction, just a strange sense of emptiness, as if past pain had depleted his capacity to feel intense emotions. That night, Finley posed a question that took Alden by surprise. "Dad, was Mom really a bad person?" Alden put down the book he was reading and looked seriously at his son. He knew this question would come sooner or later, but still felt unprepared. "Why do you ask that, buddy?" Finley shrugged. "A boy at school said he saw things about my mom on the internet, that she tried to hurt you. Is that true?" Alden took a deep breath, wanting to protect his son but not lie to him. "Your mother did some very wrong things. That's why she had to leave. But people are complicated, Finley. People who do bad things aren't necessarily completely bad, just as those who do good things aren't completely good. I miss her sometimes," Finley confessed quietly. "Does that make me bad too?" Alden pulled his son into his arms. "No, of course not. Missing her is completely normal. She's your mother, and it's natural for you to love her, no matter what she did." Finley snuggled into his father's embrace, and Alden felt a sting in his heart. His son was innocently suffering the consequences of this tragedy, something Alden could never forgive Lydia for. The next day, Alden contacted his lawyer to inquire about Lydia's current situation and legal status. "She's still serving her sentence, with good behavior," Dorian informed him. "She has again requested visitation rights, this time through correspondence. The court is asking about our position." Alden hesitated. Personally, he wanted no contact with Lydia, but Finley had just expressed that he missed her. He needed to make the decision most beneficial for his son, not just based on his own feelings. "If it's through strictly controlled letters, I think Finley might be at an age where he can handle this limited contact," Alden finally said. "But I need to discuss it first with his psychologist." When Finley's psychologist expressed support for limited, supervised communication, Alden accepted Lydia's request. He established strict boundaries. All letters must first pass through his review. Any attempt to manipulate or harm Finley would be intercepted, and Alden reserved the right to terminate this arrangement at any time. Lydia's first letter was brief and measured. She expressed how much she missed Finley, asked about his school and interests, but didn't mention the past events or Alden. Finley responded describing his new life, friends, and hobbies, but remained silent about deeper emotional issues. Alden observed how this limited communication affected Finley. It comforted him to see that his son could view communication with his mother as a small part of his life, not the center. Finley continued to thrive, excelling in school, maintaining healthy friendships, and standing out on the soccer team. 5 years later, Finley was now 12, growing into a sensitive but strong young man. Alden's design business flourished, and his friendship with Alara had also gradually deepened, though both carefully maintained emotional distance. One day, Alden received an unexpected call. Lydia's lawyer informed him that she had been diagnosed with terminal cancer in prison and had only a few months to live. She requested to see Finley one last time before dying. Alden felt overwhelmed. On one hand, he still couldn't forgive Lydia's betrayal. On the other, he wasn't sure he had the right to deprive Finley of the chance to say goodbye to his mother. He decided to frankly discuss the matter with Finley, giving him the choice. "Your mother is very ill," he explained calmly. "The doctors say she may not have much time left. She wants to see you once. It's completely up to you. There's no right or wrong answer." Finley reflected for a long time, then looked at his father. "I want to see her, Dad. Not because I've forgotten what she did, but because I need to ask her some questions before I can really let go." Alden felt proud of his son's maturity, though also anxious about the imminent meeting. He arranged the prison visit but insisted on being present as well, to protect Finley from potential emotional harm. On the way to the prison, Finley was surprisingly calm. "You know what, Dad?" he suddenly said. "No matter what happens, I'm grateful it's been just the two of us all these years. You've done really well." Alden gripped the steering wheel, trying to control his emotions. His son had grown amidst this tragedy, showing wisdom and empathy beyond his years. The prison visiting room was cold and austere. When Lydia was brought in, Alden barely recognized her. 5 years of prison and illness had completely changed her appearance. She was emaciated, pale, with thinning hair, but when she saw Finley, her eyes still sparkled with joy. "You've grown so much," she said weakly, her voice trembling. "Thank you for coming to see me." Finley nodded but didn't move to embrace her. "You wanted to see me because you want to tell me something?" Lydia looked at Alden, then back at Finley. I wanted to tell you in person that I'm very sorry. Not just for what I did, but for not being present during the years you were growing up. I've missed so much, your soccer games, your birthdays, all those important moments. Why? Finley asked directly. Why did you want to hurt Dad? Lydia's eyes filled with tears. I don't have a good reason, just pathetic excuses. I felt lonely, lost, I craved change. Thaddeus made me believe I deserved more, and that your father was an obstacle. I was stupid, I let myself be manipulated, but in the end, it was my choice, my mistake. The meeting lasted approximately half an hour. Lydia didn't seek forgiveness. She just wanted Finley to know her remorse was genuine. Finley maintained emotional distance, but also showed a certain degree of empathy. When time was up, Lydia simply said, "Live a good life, Finley. You deserve all the happiness in the world." On the way back, Finley remained silent for a long time, finally saying, "She looks completely different from how I remembered her." Alden nodded. People change, especially after going through something like that. I don't hate her, Finley reflected, but I'm not sure I can forgive her either. Is that normal? Completely normal, Alden responded. Some things can't be fully forgiven, but we can learn to live with them and move forward. 6 weeks later, Lydia's lawyer informed Alden that she had died. Respecting Finley's wishes, Alden took him to the simple funeral. The ceremony was brief and private, with very few people attending. Alden stayed at a distance, giving Finley his space to say goodbye. That night, Alden found Finley sitting on the backyard swing, looking at the stars. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. Finley nodded. "I was thinking, if that lady hadn't warned you that night, how everything would be. Probably neither of us would be here." Alden sat beside his son. Life is always full of what-ifs, but we can't change the past, only decide how to face the future. "I'm glad we have each other, Dad." Finley leaned on his father's shoulder. "We make a good team." Alden put his arm around his son's shoulders, feeling the tranquility of the night. His heart still had scars that would probably never fully heal. He wouldn't forgive Lydia's betrayal, nor forget the fear of that night and the subsequent pain. But he had learned to live with those scars, for Finley and for himself. 10 years later, when Finley graduated from college, Alden felt a quiet satisfaction. Despite the tragedy, they had made it through. Finley had grown to be a compassionate, but not naive young man, able to see human complexity without being trapped in the shadows of the past. Alden never remarried, though he maintained a close friendship with Alara. Trust remained a challenge for him, but he no longer saw everyone as potential betrayers. He had learned to distinguish between caution and paranoia, to stay open but not defenseless. Sometimes, in dreams, Alden still returned to that fateful night, seeing the swapped wine glass. During the first years, this dream would wake him with a racing heart and cold sweat. But with time, the dream lost its power. Life continued, with all its complexity, pain, and beauty. The scars of betrayal would always remain, but they no longer defined Alden's life. In the shadow of that poisoned glass, he found the courage to move forward, not through forgiveness, but by accepting reality and refusing to be trapped in the past. At Finley's graduation ceremony, someone asked Alden if he regretted the decisions of the past. He shook his head, his gaze fixed on his son, proudly smiling in the distance. "Every step, however painful, brought us to this moment. I have no regrets." That swapped poison glass changed everyone's fate, but in the end, it was Alden and Finley's own choices that shaped their future. Among the ruins of betrayal, they built a new life. Imperfect, but authentic, scarred, but strong. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more fascinating content. We look forward to seeing you in our next story.